My name is Chang, and I'm a PhD student at University of Florida. Today I learned a lot from all these discussions, but since my major is architecture, as an architect, the response and the mission for us is to create and design a space for all the disciplines. So for today's workshop, my inspiration is Laudato Si, the second encyclical of Pope Francis. In his letter, we can see his worry about the symbolic use of spiritual home and the negative impacts of industrialization and consumerism on our society. So my topic is about what happened to our city and what happened to our common home, why we need religious architecture in this moment, and what kind of religious architecture we need for today's society. Religious architecture is amongst the most impressive building designed by architects from the past to the present. As a center of worship, prayer, and meditation, the origin of religious architecture expresses humans' imagination of miracle, myths, and ideal life guarded by divine, such as the Chinese concept of Penglai and Penglai paradise and the Western concept of Garden of Eden. However, after the Industrial Revolution or modernity, new type of buildings such as mass residential houses and high-rise commercial buildings occupy the center and the skyline of megacity. With urban expansion to suburban, the commercialization of building and the radical shrink of public space, the continued rise of lines volume and the breakthrough of digital and construction technology have become the primary concerns in today's architecture. In the late 1920s, Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier designed a new utopian city model called volume reduced. The city design based on the abstract graphics treat modern architecture as an industrial machine inhabited by human beings, while cities become a collection of living machines. This pursuit of mechanical aesthetics makes the city layout concentrate onto the standardized, complete, centralized urban structure. This modern urbanism has had a high impact on urban planning in China as well as the world. We cannot deny the importance of such a standardized aesthetic extent. But after it is misinterpreted and overcopied through the process of industrialization and urbanization, recognition of our local city's cultural identity, our building's characteristics is basically reduced with increasing homogeneous urban space and skylines. You may find that all the cities look like the same. It could be like Shanghai, Hong Kong, or Tokyo. Actually, Japanese architect Toyo Ito held an exhibition entitled Dream in 1992, using different images to show the formality, chaos, overwhelming pressures of Tokyo. He suggests that nowadays our city is a kind of simulated city. Consumerism not only gives us an illusion and short-term comfort, but also homogenize our aesthetics in the sense of visual, auditory, and sensory. That's why we choose imitation, a very efficient way and an economic way to define who we are. In the dream, we imitated real running under the sky. Or maybe we buy a bunch of flowers at a flower shop. It's just like we receive the grace from the earth. And in the shopping mall, we just imitate the commercial labels and brands given to us by consumerism by buying a desired style of clothing. We care less on our environment, our home, and our living spatial quality. The architecture has only to need to provide the most basic living functions. So what happened to our spatial quality? It may just look like a bubble. because you don't need anything happening here to define who you are. Like a philosopher Martin Heidegger said, only if we are capable of dwelling, only then we can build. In today's mass reproduction of homogeneous building with too much emphasis on technology application and pragmatic functions, architecture has been separated from the spiritual experience and of the world and its relationship with poetic dwelling. And for this reason, I think that is why our architects need to focus on religious architecture and pay more attention on when we practice our design strategies of religious architecture. It historically unified our body, mind, and soul. And it is a very good building type to change our city's atmosphere. In the process of urbanization, religious architecture is like a retreat place for nowadays people, a space for them to rethink who we are. As demonstrated in Chang's landscape painting and gardens, the more we aspire to spiritual perception, the self-identity of human individual, the more we desire an informal atmosphere of architectural space for our inner freedom. In today's society and world, human beings are still looking for such a retreat space for spiritual and enlightenment. But to have a contemplation space for spiritual enlightenment, it doesn't have to take place in a magnificent formal architecture with very luxury decorations. It is more important to focus on Cora, this concept developed by Plato. Martin Heidegger's explanation is that Cora is the quality of space. It is just like a mirror, a fragment, a moment in architecture to reflect people's story, mind, and soul in this spatial quality. Just like when we try to draw a section maybe for this building. It is not only to see how the structure looks like, but it shows what the story happens in here. So, for example, Kaiyuan Temple is one of the oldest existing temple in Quanzhou, was built in Chang Dynasty. For certain political, religious, and economic reasons, Chang Emperor Wuzong issued an imperial edict to destroy the Buddha and destroy this temple. When our poet Zhu Qingyu visited this destroyed Kaiyuan temple, he wrote a poem on what he had seen and heard. When he faced this lonely and decadent ruins of temple, the poet realized the subtle meaning of Chan at his heart. As a result of martyrdom, the destroyed temple is far from the hustle and bustle of the world, but it still endures the wisdom of Buddhism and acts as a retreat of spiritual space. Zhu's point reminds us the significant relationship between the physical space and our spiritual enlightenment. It also shows that the informal moment at an informal space can allow us to move away from the formal order and our society and seek religious enlightenment through this informal architecture. When Zhu Qingyu's meditation was not based on a very solemn religious rituals, but was realized in very informal atmosphere and of walking in this ruined temple as a Cora, as a resistance to formal atmosphere of the city. Actually, we can see these informal moments in China from the history. In Chinese architectural history, we can observe informal architectural space which satisfy humans' desire, such as the traditional scaffolding industrial for courtyard dwelling, and in ancient Beijing, and the temporary informal construction attached to Chang in Pavilion, the imperial theater in Forbidden City. In both these cases, the informal space was inserted and evolved from the engage of the original formal structure and introduced a very different atmosphere at there. And then it created a cora, fresh the sense of a place. So how to design an informal structure with function of contemplation for modern religious architecture? My design strategies are as follows. First, we need to establish a variable and flexible structure system and a scale close to human body, which is intended to resist the formal architecture structure like skyscrapers. Second is creating a structural logic and building a connection with context and our landscape. The third is building structure is detachable, and the space for meditation should exist like a floating cloud. After disassembled, the informal structure can be easily rebuilt in another place, making it easy to carry out meditation activity in different frame of time and space. Inspired by the craft of tunnel and mortise joint in Chinese traditional timber architecture, my proposed conceptual model for informal meditation space seeks an informal spiritual structure as a primary architectural language. After a series of tests, the base unit was designed as an assembly of standard wood sticks with joint of tunnel and mortise in a cubic unit of 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. And these cubic units are connected to each other without any nails or metal fittings to form a freestanding pavilion for meditation. I took these cubic units as a strategy how we observed our common home, the four-folded word mentioned by Heidegger, to observe our sky, earth, divinity, and the immortals ourselves. The pavilion, which can be constructed in an existing gardens, parks, universities, ancient temples, the garden of church, and it will be built and dismantled according to the needs of maybe like a seasonal or religious activities. It also can be seen as a constantly changing labyrinth, providing multiple possibilities for observing external scenes and an intimated body movement scale for meditation and strolling. Numerous combination plan become possible for structural assemblage to fit a flexibly selected site, especially contrasting with the original formal orders of the environment of the space. And the design of informal space for spiritual meditation can be also conceived by alluding to historical allegory of religious symbolism. I choose 3 of the Taoism stories happening there, and to make them have a connection to a architectural gesture. For this one is debate on the happiness of fish, like the story, you are not fish, how do you know the fish is happy? And this one is trying to show a contemplation like gazing at the sea. You can see that I try to create some godfish tank from in the structure, and it will cast the light and shadow on people's body. So at that moment, you are a fish, or you are not a fish. So you can sit there to think about what is the happiness. And the second story is Hermit in Between, Zhongyi. You can see that it is like a pavilion in a very noisy, crowded city center, but it is a space for people. Space for people to have silence, peaceful for their meditation. And the third one is wandering in absolute freedom, like 逍遥游. It is a pavilion built in maybe natural environment. When people walk in there, they could sit, they could meditation, they could do anything they wanted there. But also observing the grace given us, the nature given us. I choose these three as a metaphor for my project. And this design informal contemplation space are intended to change people's psychological state and satisfy the desire for a retreat. So I hope people could find their soul and maybe to think who we are. And in this case, that is today's my topic. I hope that this case could express my ideas. We should pay more attention on the significant roles of religious architecture as a contemplation space for celebrating the freedom, the joy of the soul, a place for happiness of fish. For example, we studied a lot for today's discussions. I'm just thinking about maybe for today's discussion, how about this symposium held in the garden, and we built a informal construction at there. And this shape, the architectural gesture is related to each topic of your guys. And I believe that modern architecture creates a miracle of fancy skyscrapers. Today we think skyscraper is the best, but informally constructed space can find a better home for spiritual contemplation. Thank you.